Myron's heated debate with Sneeko on Islam in America, video by Myron Gaines X. So we're going to check out this debate that Myron recently had with Sneeko on the topic of, so this conversation between Myron and Sneeko was very long and they covered a variety of topics. And so with this video, we're mainly going to focus on the topic of whether or not America is a Christian nation founded on the Christian or on the basis of the Christian religion. We're going to tackle that and completely shred Myron to pieces. Truly pathetic. He's completely selling out the Muslim community as he sold out the black community. We've seen Brandon Tatum do the same thing. First, he sold out the black community, then he's selling out the Christian community to the state of Israel. And so in a lot of ways, Myron and Brandon Tatum are exactly the same.
Well, you want to give your position then? Because you saw what I had to say then. So
about Adon playing?
Yes.
Yeah, I mean, if you hear church bells play, I mean, like Dearborn is majority Muslim, right? It's a small town.
It's about, yeah, it's like 50, 50, 60, somewhere around there.
Points of contention. There's Dearborn and there's also Times Square.
I will say it's like 50, 60% Muslim, but sorry, 50, 60% like Middle Eastern, but we don't know if they're Muslim.
Yeah.
So like they're from the Middle East and North Africa. So you can assume a majority of them probably are Muslim, but we don't know if all of them
Yeah,
are.
probably 60, 70%.
Yeah,
but there's
no, like we could say 90% of
But
that,
even in Morocco or Saudi Arabia, there's still, you hear the Adhan and there's still many Christians that live there. And many.
Yeah, but like they're not actively asserting their religion publicly in these Muslim countries.
What do you mean?
So, okay, my thing is this. The United States is a Christian country. It was founded by Protestant Christians.
No, it's a secular country.
Well, here's the thing. So
we have freedom of religion.
So that is completely false. America was not founded by Protestant Christians. Let's go ahead and take a look at the actual faiths of the people who founded this country. So here we have a list of the 12 founding fathers and their faiths that have been recorded in history. George Washington, who has been Christ washed as a Christian, but he was not a Christian, right? He attended church regularly, but rarely took communion, spoke often of providence rather than Jesus Christ, suggesting a belief in a guiding creator, but not necessarily in Orthodox Christian doctrine. Essentially, George Washington, who was also a Freemason. And so at best, we can say George Washington was an unconventional Christian. I mean, I don't know how many Christians you know today that would say that you can both be a Christian and an active and proud Freemason. Nowadays, communion is seen as kind of an optional symbolic ceremony, but you have to understand, if you study Christian history, at the time of George Washington, and the further you go back, the more true this is, communion was seen as an actual spiritual sacrament that washed, that cleansed the body of sin. It was essentially a step down from a baptism, right? So you would take communion, and if you have repented and turned back to God, that communion would have a kind of cleansing effect, which is why they would say if you have sin and you take communion, it could cause you to get sick or even die. Nowadays, it's this symbolic thing that doesn't really mean anything. It doesn't really matter. It's like a gesture to God. But this is not how it was practiced for the grand majority of Christian tradition. It was seen as an actually powerful spiritual ritual that had a real world effect on your body. And so it says a lot when George Washington didn't take communion, right? Or didn't take it often. It seems like, he was in a Christian culture. I can say that America has always been influenced by Christian culture, but George Washington was no true Christian. But that's just scratching the surface. Then we have Thomas Jefferson, who was a deist and a Unitarian sympathizer. Look at this. He rejected miracles. He rejected the Trinity. He rejected the divinity of Christ. I mean, that's even worse than a Muslim. And by that, I mean Muslims don't acknowledge the divinity of Christ or the Trinity, but Muslims do believe in miracles. And so Thomas Jefferson, one of the most famous founding fathers who also owned hundreds of slaves, Thomas Jefferson, he was less religious, less spiritual than even a Muslim. Muslims have more in common with modern Christians than Thomas Jefferson is the point that I'm making, right? He created the Jefferson Bible, removing all supernatural elements from the Gospels, believed in the moral teachings of Jesus, not divine authority. Clearly, it doesn't seem that Thomas Jefferson would be the kind of person who thinks that what we really need in this country is a strong Christian faith, a strong Orthodox Christian faith. Then we have James Madison, who was a deist / Enlightenment theist, meaning he wasn't even a Christian. He believed in God. He's like me. He believed in God, but he didn't believe in the religion of Christianity. Then we have John Adams, who was a Unitarian Christian. What does that mean? He believed in God and morality, but denied the Trinity and original sin. Now, I dare you to go and ask any Protestant, any Roman Catholic, any Orthodox Christian, whether or not you can deny the Trinity and still be a Christian. In fact, it's literally the thing that makes a Christian is believing that Jesus Christ is God. Otherwise, you're essentially a Muslim, right? And look at this. Look at what John Adams said. John Adams said, the government of the United States is not in any sense founded on the Christian religion. Now, John Adams, who was also a president and was one of the original 12 founding fathers that founded this country, wrote the, signed the Declaration of Independence and all that. He said explicitly, the government of the United States is not in any sense founded on the Christian religion. How can you then say that the founding fathers, or that this country was founded as a Christian country by Protestant Christians? But I want to go back to what John Adams said right here when he said the government of the United States is not in any sense founded on the Christian religion. Now, someone might say, okay, well, that was just one of the founders and that was just his opinion, right? This was not something that was acknowledged necessarily with any significance by the American government. Well, you'll actually be surprised to learn in 1797, about 20 years after the Declaration of Independence, after the American government was founded, we had John Adams, president and founding father. This is almost 100 years before the abolition of slavery, right? We have the Treaty of Tripoli. This is the important part. The Treaty of Tripoli was signed by President John Adams and unanimously ratified by the U.S. Senate. And in Article 11 of this treaty, that is where it says, the government of the United States of America is not in any sense founded on the Christian religion. Now, why was this stated? It's actually really interesting and relevant to this debate because of the whole Islam angle. Check this out. After the revolution, the U.S. had conflicts with North African states known as the Barbary states, modern-day Libya, Algeria, Tunisia, and Morocco, whose rulers authorized privateers to seize ships unless paid tribute. These states were Muslim. Look at this. The whole reason this treaty was created was for the sake of working with Muslim nations. These states were Muslim, and the U.S., lacking the British Navy's protection, had to negotiate its own treaties. The Treaty of Peace and Friendship between the United States and Tripoli, modern-day Libya, was drafted in 1796. Again, 20 years after the country was founded. Signed by President John Adams in 1797, who was one of the founding fathers. If anybody understood the soul of the foundation of America, it would have been one of the founding fathers and presidents, no? And unanimously ratified by the Senate. That unanimity is important. It shows that every U.S. senator at the time agreed with its contents. There wasn't a single senator that voted against this bill because they saw this article and said, oh, wait, no, we're a Christian nation. This nation was founded on the principles of the Christian religion. Not a single senator took issue with it. They were like, yeah, of course we're not. This is the whole reason we founded this country, right? Because we escaped the persecution of Protestants in Britain, and we already have this variety of different denominations, and so we want a country that has religious freedom, meaning you can practice whatever faith you want. So much to the point where they're putting it in an actual legal document so that they can work with Muslim nations. Let's read the full clause, word for word, from the 1797 English translation. As the government of the United States of America is not in any sense founded on the Christian religion, as it has in itself no character of enmity against the laws, religion, or tranquility of Muslims. And as the said state, the United States, never entered into any war or act of hostility against any Muslim nation, it is declared by the parties that no pretext arising from religious opinion shall ever produce an interruption of the harmony existing between the two countries. That is what the Founding Fathers intended. That is what the Founding Fathers believed. And 20 years later, after the foundation of this country, they reasserted it in a legal document that has been ratified, and the original English translation that was drafted by the Senate and ratified by the Senate still exists today with this clause in it. So this was not a private letter or opinion. It was a ratified U.S. government document endorsed by the Senate, signed by the president. That means it represented the official position of the United States in international law. So according to one of the Founding Fathers, according to the U.S. government, 20 years later, this country was in no way founded on the Christian religion. But other noteworthy mentions in regards to the Founding Fathers: Benjamin Franklin, he was a deist with Christian leanings, not a Christian. Okay, we got Thomas Paine, a radical deist and anti-Christian, author of The Age of Reason, which attacked organized religion and the Bible, believed in a creator but rejected all revealed religions. Listen, do you think that if a group of guys were coming together to found a country on the basis of Christian principles and on the basis of the Christian religion, that they would allow a man like Thomas Paine, who was literally writing articles attacking the Bible? Do you think they would allow him, as well as anti-Christians and deists and Unitarians and Freemasons? Do you think all of these people would have been allowed to sign this document, the Declaration of Independence? So make no mistake, my friends, America is in no way, shape, or fashion a Christian nation. It was not founded on Christian ideals. Yes, there was a large Christian population. Yes, there is still a large Christian population, an ever shrinking one, but a large one nonetheless. And so, yeah, but first and foremost, this is a country. This is a secular nation. It is not a theocracy. Okay, it is not a nation. And in the Constitution, check this out. Nowhere in the Constitution is the word God mentioned, or Christianity, or Jesus. Nowhere. There is no mention of God or Christianity in the U.S. Constitution. Unlike many European charters of the time, the U.S. Constitution does not invoke divine authority. The only reference to religion is prohibitive, not prescriptive. Clause 3 of Article 6, no religious test shall ever be required as a qualification to any public office, right? To any office or public trust under the United States. So with that said, let's continue with the video.
Okay. My thing is this. The United States is a Christian country. It was founded by Protestant Christians.
No, it's a secular country.
Well, here's the thing. So
we just debunked that. There were some Protestant Christians, but you know, it was not. This is not a Christian country.
Freedom of religion. It's always been the way.
We do. But when they had the freedom of religion and the separation of church and state, that was instituted not just for freedom of religion purposes, but also because there are the fights between Catholics, Baptists, Protestants, etc. So what they wanted to separate the church from the state so that neither can corrupt the other. Does that make sense? Yeah. So like the separation of church and state was actually instituted to protect both institutions from corrupting each other.
The Founding Fathers had an opportunity to use the Bible and the Constitution, and they decided not to because it's a secular country. Because they
do reference God. They do reference God.
They don't. They don't at all. He's lying. He doesn't know what he's talking about.
But they say God. They don't say Jesus. Which
doesn't even say God, Sneeko. It doesn't even say God.
More universal. And they were very specific about that. Yeah. Thomas Jefferson himself, he also said that he wants America to be for the Jews, for the Mohammedan. This is a quote, the Mohammedans. And for the,
you call them Mohammedans?
That's what he said.
That's funny.
The Mohammedans.
That's funny.
I think it was common back then. So he specifically referenced that. Also in DC, there's a mural on the top, on the ceiling with depictions of prophets and of different gods from all religions.
Are you sure? Because in Islam, they're not supposed to depict.
Yeah, they're not supposed to depict, but it's not, they weren't Muslim, but yeah, there is a depiction.
Are you sure that that's references like Islamic prophet? Like, because remember, we share the same prophets as them. So like they could, we observe Moses, Jesus, Abraham, like we observe all of them as prophets. So look, my thing is, like, and even with the church bells, like, let's assume they play church, because church bells are banned in a lot of places. But let's assume
I hear to my apartment in New York.
That's New York is, I don't know what the rules are in New York. But the thing is, let's assume that church bells are legal everywhere. Let's assume they're legal everywhere and they play them loud and everything. This is still a Christian country. I think they can do that. Like,
what does that mean? It's a Christian country.
This was founded by Christians. But this is a Christian nation.
But we have freedom of religion.
We already debunked that. This country was also founded by an anti-Christian. So does that make this an anti-Christian nation? Right? It doesn't make any sense. This country was founded by Anglicans. Well, does this make this country an Anglican nation? It was also founded by Unitarians. Does it make it a Unitarian nation? Because you have to understand, these are all very different religions. The theology behind Unitarianism is very different than the theology behind Trinitarianism. So much to the point that a Trinitarian will say to a Unitarian that you're not a Christian and you're going to hell, right, for denying the Lord Jesus Christ. So you have to understand that you can't just cherry pick today the one that aligns most with your raccoonery, with your grifting and pandering to white American Protestant nationalists. You can't just say, oh, well, out of the 12, these 5 were, kind of what the closest thing to modern mainstream Protestant Christians. And so we're going to say it is now a Christian country. No, that doesn't make sense. That falls apart completely. They didn't put it in the Constitution. They ratified a document 20 years later that explicitly denied that America was founded based on the Christian religion. And the founding fathers consisted of people of multiple different spiritual beliefs. So this statement is false in every sense of the word false. It is wrong. He can't be more wrong in saying that America was founded as a Christian nation.
But it's not in the Bible's not referenced.
We have freedom of religion, but at the end of the day, Muslims, we are guests here. This is not a Muslim nation. This was not founded by Muslims. Like, at the end of the day, the host religion gets to assert a level of dominance, unfortunately, because they are the majority and they're the ones that.
But the founding fathers didn't intend for that. They didn't even say.
Because they're the majority, and so are you telling me that if the majority of America became atheist or the majority of America became Muslim, it would now be a Muslim nation? It would now be, and so Christians would have to submit to Muslims? Because that's what these any white Christian nationalist that's listening to Myron right now and being like, yeah, you tell him, Myron, tell Sneeko. Understand that's what you would be setting up if you wanted to set that kind of a precedent. Not only would it be completely unconstitutional and illegal, to put that kind of shit into practice, to put laws behind this kind of an idea because it goes against the Constitution. Not only is it that, but you open yourself up. This is why the founding fathers, if only they weren't addicted to the injustice of slavery, the Constitution would be the closest thing we've ever seen to a perfect founding document. Truly, they really were ahead of their time. They really were thinking this shit through pretty thoroughly, and that's because they understood what they were escaping, what they were fleeing from in Europe. And this was a part of it, religious persecution.
Say that. They didn't say they want Christian dominance. If they wanted Christian dominance, they would have included the Bible in the Constitution. They would have said Jesus.
Well, right. they did that, like I said before, to avoid, issues between Baptists and Protestants and Catholics, because this was an issue.
Well, one thing we can agree on is that they all revere the Bible as a holy book. And so, no, that's not a good argument for why they didn't include Bible verses, because if they were all just different variations of Protestant Christians, which they weren't, we already went over that. Some of them were patently anti-religious, anti-Christian. They would have no problem including Bible verses. They all read more or less the same Bible, or they can at least find a book in the Bible that they all agree on, right? Like the book of Matthew, the book of John, right? The book of Exodus. They could have found, books that they all say, yeah, we all agree that this is from the Bible. This is our book. But they didn't do that. This is what it looks like to bend over, to prostrate yourself in front of white supremacy, to get railed. He is so such a bootlicker, man. It's so disgusting. So much to the point that he's even selling out Muslims. That's insane to me.
Issue back in Europe with the church and the state being involved and intertwined. But when they forged it, they didn't expect, oh yeah, we're going to have freedom of religion, but let another religion come in and dominate. Like, let me explain. So like if you go to any of these...
It's impossible for any religion to dominate because religion, there is a separation between church and state. It shouldn't matter whatever is the most popular religion in America. It was set up that way on purpose. People have the opportunity to practice whatever faith they want in the privacy of their home with their community, whatever. Muslim, atheist, Christian, Hindu, Buddhist. It wouldn't fucking matter. None of that should come into, the House of Representatives. Like all that shit is supposed to be left at the door when it's time to pass laws and policies. We do not live in a theocracy.
Muslim countries, right? You can practice in peace, right? You can practice Christianity or your religions in peace, except for, I don't think paganism is allowed in any of the Muslim countries. That's a problem. But if you're a Jew or if you're a Christian or whatever, you can practice. But like, you can't like...
Yeah, but these Muslim countries that he's referring to, like Saudi Arabia, these are literally theocracies. Their government is structured in such a way, their documents that talk about how the government is ran acknowledge that the country is to be led by literal Muslim leaders, right? That's the difference. America's not a theocracy. Nowhere in any of our founding documents in our Constitution, even with all the amendments, is there any mention of God, Jesus, none of that. Religion, the only time religion is mentioned in the Constitution is to say that, there's a freedom of religion, right? That there should be no religious test for becoming the president, for becoming a politician, or anything of that nature.
Assert that religion openly, like praying on the streets or doing anything like that in a Muslim country.
You could pray in the streets in a Muslim country.
In huge groups?
Yeah, why not?
Yeah, bro. No.
Yeah, but again, we are not a Muslim country. We are not a religious country. This is not a theocracy. So
there's no.
So stop comparing apples to oranges.
It's not happening.
There's no example of that happening. That's of Christians not praying on the street.
But why do they not do it?
Because Christians don't pray on the street.
No, but if they did, why don't they do it then?
I don't know. It's just not.
Why don't they record themselves doing it openly in these Sharia law countries?
That's not Christian practice.
Yeah, because that is it's a theocracy. They don't have freedom of speech. They don't have freedom of religious expression in those countries. Okay, that's not America. If that's what you want, you should go move to Sudan, right? Because us sub-Saharan descendants, we don't know what we're incompetent, we're dumb. So you're Sudanese. Why don't you go to Sudan, where you can be amongst your fellow high IQ brethren? Right, because things are going so well over there.
Fleeing for their lives through the killing fields of Darfur, destination unknown. Thousands of civilians escaping the latest brutal battle in Sudan's civil war. This victory filmed by the victorious, as wars often are, the Rapid Support Forces who now control Western Sudan. Yesterday, these jubilant Arab fighters filmed the capture of the last major army outpost in the west, in the city of El Fasher, apparently sealing the division of the third biggest country in Africa after 2.5 years of civil war, with over 40,000 killed so far. The RSF's deputy commander, Abdul Rahim Dagalo, told his men not to loot or target civilians, to go home to their families. But after a siege lasting over 500 days, to the victors the spoils, and now a new phase of terrifying retribution has begun. Outside El Fasher, the RSF filmed their military trucks menacing Darfuris, all of them black Africans trying to escape.
Now, to be clear, I stand with the people of Sudan, and I think it's absolutely terrible what's happening over there, and what we are seeing is the result of corruption, of nationalism, of fascism, of authoritarianism, the same shit Myron is trying to bring to America. He doesn't want to go back to his homeland because of the persecution of the people that is occurring there by an authoritarian regime. And he's trying to bring that to America. The thing he and his family escaped, he's trying to bring that to America, but he's okay with it because instead of brown people and Arabs like him that will be the oppressors, he's cool with it if it's white Christians because he's under some delusion that they are going to accept him because of all the tap dancing that he does. So pray for Sudan. I stand with my Muslim brothers and my, you know what I'm saying? I don't care that me and you aren't genetically related closely at all, right? We haven't been genetically related closely for tens of thousands of years. You people in North Africa with us West and Central African descendants, but still racism, authoritarianism, oppression of all forms, I find it completely detestable. And I personally don't believe that what you're seeing in your community is a result of being low IQ or anything like that. You guys are being oppressed by something very similar to what black people have been and are still being persecuted by in this country, which is, of course, white supremacy. And I'm sure if I dug more into your history, I could find evidence of white supremacy contributing to the problems that you're now seeing in Sudan. So pray for Sudan.
Because they respect the country. They respect the host nation. But I'm saying that as Muslims, we should do the same. Like, this is not our country. We did not found this country.
But look,
so
all different religions that people pray at.
We got mosques. We could pray at home. Like, my issue isn't with praying. My issue is with openly praying and disrupting others.
Okay.
If you're openly praying and you're not disrupting anybody, I don't care. Like some dude in Dallas.
I was in Times Square. We weren't disrupting anybody. I was there on the front line. I made a whole vlog. We could watch it.
Yeah, bruh.
There was no nobody was disrupted.
Here's the thing.
Not one person there complained.
I guarantee you that, of course, they're not going to complain because they don't want to be labeled bigots. But in New York City, where they're cucked, the reality is people probably wanted.
Listen, in this country, we have the right to assemble. We have the right to protest peacefully, even. And I am sure that a peaceful protest is far more disruptive than a group of Muslims coming together to pray. When you are out in public, you have a right to be wherever you are, right? If you're on public property, you have a right to just be standing there. So if a Muslim wants to pray on the sidewalk or pray, if he can stand there, he can pray there, essentially. Freedom of religion, religious expression, freedom of speech, the right to assemble. These are all rights granted in the Constitution. You know, it's so crazy that all these people that are so nationalistic and authoritarian in the way that they speak, they don't give a fuck about the Constitution. They actually don't give a fuck about what the Constitution actually says. These people are supposed to be so pro-America and America first, and they don't give a fuck about what the founding documents and the legal documents that we have that are supposed to guide the decisions that we make in this country legislatively. They don't give a fuck about them.
So I guarantee you there are hundreds, if not thousands of people that went there and were like, yo, I want to take pictures of Times Square. And they're like, oh, these guys are praying.
No,
I can't go in now.
It was the section right in front of the stairs. It wasn't blocking the sidewalk. There's an open walking area, and it was that section. It was really cold that day.
Of course.
And we said and the people were still, like, Times Square wasn't shut down.
No, of course
it wasn't illegal. Like, it wasn't like we had the cops or anything. We just all gathered there and prayed.
Here's the thing, man. Like, praying in a symbolic Western location that's a tourist destination.
What about like Chinese festivals?
And disrupt.
That's not, you're just making up laws now. You're just making shit up.
That's a public display of their culture.
Yeah, well,
I hear what about?
I'm not a fan, dude. Honestly, I don't think we should have any of these fucking parades.
You shouldn't have parades?
I don't think we should have cultural parades. No.
There was just a Yom Kippur celebration in New York.
They shouldn't have cultural parades. Well, other than the fact that America is literally a country of immigrants. That's what this country is. It is a melting pot of different cultures. It has always been that way. You got to think to yourself, the first people, the first white people on this country, they all had British accents. Have you ever thought about that? The first few generations of Europeans in this country all had very strong British accents, Irish accents, right? You know, the various Scottish accents, wherever they came from. French, They spoke French. Don't forget that France actually at one point in time owned a large portion of the United States, right? Purchased in the Louisiana Purchase. And all those different peoples brought different cultures, right? French culture is different from British culture, is different from Irish culture. And then, of course, you got the African culture, because at the time the Declaration of Independence was signed, 20% of the people on this continent, North America, were African, or at least 20% of the people that were identified by the U.S. government were African. That's 1 in 5 people. When America was founded, 1 in 5 people in this country were black. And so, of course, they had their culture as well. And all you have to do is look at modern day America. Even the way that Myron speaks, Myron cannot speak without using black slang. He can't speak without using black vernacular, right? Cooked. We made that shit. If Myron ever says the word cooked, we'll just continue to listen. And I'll point out to you when Myron uses black slang. He's a Sudanese immigrant, right? He's a second generation Sudanese immigrant, white supremacist living in America, selling out his own Muslim people, his own Muslim brethren, constantly shitting on black people for the sake of pandering to white supremacists while using black vernacular on a regular basis. This man could not be any more schizophrenic and confused if he tried. He's pro-America, but is constantly denying what the Constitution says. He's pro-America. He postures as if he's this like political and historical expert, but yet doesn't even know that God isn't mentioned in the Constitution. You know, it's truly sad and pathetic.
Get them niggas out of here.
It's not going to happen.
Get them niggas out of here. Boom. Told you. He can't speak without using our slang. He can't speak without using our lingo. Myron does not have any ancestry where people were called the N-word. He doesn't. He is not the descendant of slaves anywhere. He is not a victim of European colonialism. Okay? He's from the Middle East, bro, essentially. Sudan, this North African country, these people genetically separated from West and Central Africans, who are the real black people that moved to the Americas and the Caribbean, right? We've been separated genetically for tens of thousands of years. Look at him. Look at his nose. Look at his hair. He's not black, bro. He's not. Okay? And so he can't speak without using our lingo, yet he constantly shits on it because he's confused. He's a confused man.
New York is a very diverse place.
Here's the thing. I don't think we should be a flat.
He's a red pill dating coach that preaches traditional values. Somebody, what is going on here?
Running any other flags. I don't think we should be doing any of these parades of where these niggas come from. I don't think we should be doing any of that, personally. I think it should be straight American nationalism, American flags only, no other flags. I don't think people should be openly practicing their religion, and I reserve Christians to be able to practice their religion.
Why not share the same hour? Like there was.
So what happens? What happens when they start to say that women wearing hijabs is actually an expression of the Muslim religion? What happens then? So you want a country where Muslim women aren't allowed to wear hijabs outside, Myron? Because they would say that, because that's how this shit goes. It's a slippery slope. You turn this country into a theocracy, right? First, it turns into you can't pray in public. No, first it turns into you can't pray in public in a way that inconveniences others, right? So Muslims shouldn't get together in large groups and pray. Then it turns into you shouldn't pray in public at all, because as a Christian, and this being a Christian nation, that is offensive to me because you're praying to a false god. Then that turns into, hey, we don't even really fuck with this whole head covering shit. It makes us uncomfortable. This is what you're not getting. You're trying to go backwards, right? Like you like to appeal to respectability politics. You say there are difference between good blacks, like the raccoons that work for you, and, niggas. And the difference is that niggas don't know how to act. Right? If black people just carry themselves in a more respectable way and, basically de-blackify ourselves and try to do what you're doing, which is pretend to be a white man, we would be treated better in this country. But all we have to do is look at the 1940s, look at the 1950s, right? A lot of what you would call modern black hip hop culture didn't even exist. Black people, the further back in time you go, the more submissive black people were to white oppressors in this country, and the more brutally they were treated. That's the reality. If you don't stand up for yourself, people will walk all over you. And so when you are encouraging Muslims to take on this attitude, you are ensuring that there will come a point in time where nobody can be Muslim in this country.
The Dominican Day Parade was last month. I went there, did a stream.
Yeah,
there.
get them niggas out of here.
And people waving the, you know, it's like a
Get
big
them niggas out of here. Let me ask you something, Myron. How do you feel about that Irish festival, St. Patrick's Day, right?
festival.
St. Patrick's Day is something that celebrates Irish culture. Do you believe then that we should not have St. Patrick's Day either in this country? I'm sure he would say, no, that's fine. Why? Because they're white. Why? Because he just sucks white penis for a living.
Like it's a big celebration in New York.
No, I'm not.
I didn't see a big outrage from you about that.
No.
I don't see anyone.
Oh, dude, I've shit on these parades and shit all the time, bro. Like I am not a fan of like any of these. Puerto Rican Day Parade, I've made jokes on that shit because they're fucking Americans. What the fuck are they doing? Nobody cares about reggaeton, doom, doom. Like, and this is kind of where.
So is that them asserting dominance?
To a degree, yeah, for sure.
So it's the same thing.
Yes. That is a form of them asserting dominance to a degree. And
a minority of people coming together to have some kind of a celebration, a festival, a parade one day out of the year is asserting dominance on American culture. Something that is usually confined to the area of less than one city is asserting dominance on all of America one day out of the year. Okay. Yeah, man. Okay, all right. Well, that's all we're going to watch from this, man. I've already been recording for an hour. I know the final video is a lot shorter than that, but that's as much as I can take of listening to this fucking raccoon, you know, twirl on white penis for shekels, laughs and shekels. It's pathetic. All right, guys, that's the video. You let me know what you think in the comment section down below. Thank you for watching. Until next time, peace out.